Nav, a big supporter of the channel here. Nav, thoughts on starting a business versus stacking Bitcoin? Ooh, that's a good question. Stacking seems like the better idea at this time because business is so risky and Bitcoin can give upside without risk. Rajat, make a spreadsheet on this.
The spreadsheet master. I have a few thoughts. Yeah, who wants to start on this one?
Well, I was gonna say, I think if you're gonna start a business for yourself, I think it's worth it because you can easily, let's say Bitcoin's returns are gonna be 50, 60%. In your first few years, you can easily grow your business by more than 50, 60%. Right? If you put in, you can actually start a business by putting in no money at all. You could just put in your time, and the return on that time is literally infinite. So I think working on yourself, working on a business, building a skill is worth it. Even if you have to sell some Bitcoin. For example, I had to sell some Bitcoin to buy some of my equipment, and it's paid me back tenfold. I've made a lot more money on the equipment by creating videos, by posting them, than I would have by just holding Bitcoin.
I think it really does come down to the concept of time versus money. If you have a bunch of money, it might make sense to just buy Bitcoin instead of starting a business. But if you don't have time, right? But if you have time, you can put that time towards building a business that you can't put towards Bitcoin. Like you'd have to put that towards either working for somebody else and then buy Bitcoin with it, or you could put that time towards building a business that might pay, or that you might be able to acquire Bitcoin with later. And I'll just say, like, I started a business in 2016, and I also started getting involved in Bitcoin back then. And I traded a bunch of Bitcoin, thought I was a genius, made, a couple $1,000s, and I sold it all to invest in my business. And I've been running this business for 9 years now. And it's been great because I haven't had to work for anybody else, and I've had a lot of freedom and I've been able to pursue what I wanted to do. But I have, over that period, underperformed Bitcoin, probably.
Wow.
But I would have had to have had a different job, worked for somebody else. And if I put all that money into Bitcoin, then yeah, I would have definitely underperformed. But you still need to have income. So it's about balance as well, right? But yeah, it's really just about time, money, balance. These are the kind of things to think about. I think you maybe a hybrid, right? Stack a bunch of Bitcoin, and whatever left over, if you need money to invest in the business to begin with, then yeah, use some of it. And then you have a hybrid solution. You use Bitcoin as your treasury reserve, and you build a business on top of that with the time that you have.
I like what you said about balance. That's so important.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I would say too, is just understand where we are right now in terms of this opportunity here. I also left my job about 4 years ago now. And I will say that if I would have held out a little bit longer, there was other factors involved with my decision to leave work. But if I would have, the thing I would have done a little bit differently is I just would have worked a little bit longer. I would have, because when you stop, if you were to leave your job and start your own business, you're sacrificing a lot of sats with that. Because you're going to have to come up with some money. You're probably going to have to tap into your savings, maybe sell some of your Bitcoin. It's a lot. But at the same time, I think that even if you had 50 Bitcoin, if you're still going to work for somebody else every single day, I don't think that you have any sort of sovereignty there. And that's, for me anyways, I'm looking for financial freedom and freedom in life. And I think that you could have as much Bitcoin as you want to, but if you're still spending your time and energy working for somebody else, I don't think you're truly sovereign. So that would be kind of my advice, is kind of like you guys mentioned there, the hybrid model. I think that if you are at a job right now, I would stick it out. Even if you're not having the most fun, you can keep buying stats at this price. It's not going to be this price forever. Who knows how long, but it's not going to be like this for very much longer. So what I would suggest there is keep working your job, keep stacking Bitcoin, take your mornings and nights. That's what I did when I was still working. Start building something in the background. And then when you're ready, you can take that leap and you're going to have some income coming in already. And you can, it's a much more gradual transition into that from my personal experience.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did as well with my business that I started. I was working 5 days a week, then I went down to 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and then I finally quit my job. And that I was working 5 days a week and had replaced my income with my business, but I was still stacking that income and just putting that in savings because I knew that my goal was to quit my job, go full time in my business. But I knew that income was unreliable with a business compared to the steady income. So, and again, yeah, weekends and afternoons or evenings, building the business, and then that extra day as I began to quit my job gradually.
Yeah, I think you also have to remember that every business, even if you do take off, it will probably be disrupted at some point, or you may not want to work in the business anymore. So I think they go hand in hand. So you can start the business and buy Bitcoin with the proceeds, because at some point your business is no longer going to be making as much money as it had in the past. So that Bitcoin is basically going to support you. If you want to continue with the business, I think a lot of people, I think one of the cool things is going to be that a lot of people who build businesses that have strong roots in the community are going to continue. If they stack Bitcoin, they're going to continue to survive because they just love what they're doing. They don't really care about making profits. I think that's one of the best things about Bitcoin, because you don't have to keep raising your prices. You don't have to keep charging people more and more. You can do it because you actually love doing it.
And that's a creativity and innovation unlock as well, by having that abundance
Huge.
mindset where you're not forced to, only create stuff for income, because like that's a super stressful situation to be in. And it totally limits what you'll end up doing in your business.
Yeah, and the one piece of advice that I would give to somebody who's thinking about starting a business is you should. I really think that in a decade from now, the corporate landscape as we know it today is going to look completely different. Like, let's say that there's 80% employees today, 20% small businesses. I think that's going to flip to be 20% employees and 80% people actually doing their own things. Just because of technology, the world is moving to a very decentralized world, and the work structure as we know it is going to be no different than that. The one thing that's really changed in the last 5 years since I've got more into Bitcoin is, when you start a business, you have this idea that you're going to run it for 5 years, you're going to promote it, you're going to make it worldwide as fast as you can, and then you're going to sell it. And then you're going to go to a beach and retire. And I think that that's everybody's dreams when they start. Very few people actually do that unless you're a tech startup or something, or, something very rare. But what I've changed it to be is just like focus on making really good products, focus on customer service, make the customers happy, and take a portion of your profits and put it into Bitcoin from day one, and have a very good understanding of what those numbers are in terms of what you're selling them for, what versus what it costs you, and what percentage minus taxes and other operating expenses that you can actually afford to put into Bitcoin. That's the best thing you're going to do. And you're going to basically be buying leverage into the future, because what you're sitting on today, if you hold on to that Bitcoin within your business and keep growing it over 10 years, that leverage is going to be beyond comprehension, I think, at this point. So that's what I would do, is really focus on the numbers and allocate some to Bitcoin.
Actually, something else that's really interesting is when you do dissolve the business, it'll be a lot easier to share the assets among the owners
with
because you
Bitcoin.
just give them Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it's very transparent, right?
Yeah. There's no trust involved because everybody could have the wallet addresses.
Sorry, what were you going to say there, Forrest?
There's a lot of variables here. It depends on what kind of business. If you're building a business that has some sort of intellectual property, then maybe it could just have this semi-passive income stream, and then you just you don't have to ever dissolve the business, and you're just stacking. That's what I've done, right? I've created intellectual property with my business that gives me steady income, but it's taken years to do that, and it's depreciating because it's in fiat terms, even if the numbers stay the same. But because of Bitcoin, it can actually appreciate because I immediately put it into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin just changes a business. It's not either or. It's, if you want to start a business, but include Bitcoin in that, and then you'll benefit. It's kind of as simple as that.
Yep. And the last thing I would say on it is I think you should also be thinking about the whole starting a business thing a little bit differently as well. The one thing that I would focus on is not so much looking for a specific industry that you can tap into in the traditional sense, what I would focus more on is understanding that look at sats as if they're dollars. That's basically what I've been doing for the last couple of years. And it's really changed my whole mindset in terms of doing things for fiat versus doing things for Bitcoin. And because I know what those sats are worth, and that's what I'm working for today. But instead of like having one thing in the traditional sense, like try to find as many different income streams as you possibly can. I think of it as like a wheel of income, and each stream that you have is a different, is more income. And you want to get as many different spokes on that wheel as possible. I heard that about 3 or 4 years ago as an analogy, and it's just stuck with me so much because the more spokes, it takes away your single point of failure. So if something were to happen to one of your streams of income, you still have 10 more. Whereas if you just have one job or one business and all of a sudden the industry changes or AI takes over that, you're screwed. Whereas if you focus on finding a whole bunch of these different ways to earn sats, a sats flow, then if one gets cut off, you still have 5, 10 more, and then you just keep adding to that. That's the advice that I got, and that's what's been working for me.